Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through some massive breaking news in the AI space today. But more importantly, we're going to cover the essential developer checklist you need to know right now. OpenAI just announced DevDay 2026. And look, rather than just reading the invite to you, we're going to use this explainer to actively prep your code base for what's coming.
All right, let's dive right in. Mark your calendars, September 29th, 2026. This is the exact date for OpenAI's absolute biggest event of the year, heading back to San Francisco. Now, the official announcement page is live, and yeah, they're keeping the agenda super tightly under wraps for now. But for us, this date is a massive target. If you're building AI applications, September 29th is literally the day the entire landscape shifts.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll hit the DevDay 2026 announcement. Second, we'll meet the Codex agent. Third, we'll look at building with the Agents SDK. Fourth, we'll dive into the brand new Responses API. And finally, getting you prepped for the event itself. Okay, Part 1, OpenAI DevDay 2026 announced, the San Francisco event.
Let's start by unpacking the timeline and the cadence here. If you remember DevDay 2025, Sam Altman actually mentioned it had been almost 2 years since their previous developer event. But look at this gap we have now, October 2025 to September 2026. That is roughly an 11-month cadence. Think about what that means. OpenAI has been building up a huge backlog of platform changes. I mean, if you just glance at the developer portal footer right now, it already lists GPT-5.5, GPT-5.4, and GPT-5.3 codecs as recent releases. So they have a mountain of tech to consolidate and showcase this September.
So that brings us to the real question, the most important question for you as a developer. While we sit around waiting for speaker lineups, session agendas, and live stream details, what exactly should you be focusing on today to prepare? Because let's be real, showing up to DevDay with a legacy architecture, that just means you're going to be playing catch-up instead of building on the absolute cutting edge.
Moving on to Part 2, meet the Codex agent, your new coding co-pilot.
This is the first of our 3 tech deep dives, and it's prominently featured right there on the announcement page. The official documentation sums Codex up perfectly with this quote, "One agent for everywhere you code." Codex is OpenAI's highly specialized coding agent, built specifically for software development, and it is heavily integrated into the ChatGPT Pro, Business, Edu, and Enterprise plans. It's basically designed to be your ultimate co-pilot. Codex's core capabilities actually span across macOS, your IDE, and the CLI. And it doesn't just, autocomplete text. It writes code that actually matches your intent while adapting to your specific project conventions. It's incredible for helping you understand massive, completely unfamiliar legacy code bases. It reviews code for unhandled edge cases, it traces failures to debug root causes, and it even automates all those tedious, repetitive workflows like testing and migrations. Getting deeply, deeply familiar with Codex is absolutely step 1 in your prep. All right, Part 3, building with the Agents SDK, backend orchestration. So once you're comfortable using Codex as an end user, you really need to know how to orchestrate your own agents on the back end. You're going to want to use the Agents SDK, available in TypeScript or Python, whenever your application needs to fully own the execution state, the tooling, and the approvals. This SDK is essentially your master toolkit for complex workflows. We're talking orchestrating multiple specialist agents and managing handoffs between them, implementing vital guardrails and human review mechanisms before anything risky actually executes, and even running sandbox agents for secure container execution when, say, an agent needs to access files or run packages.
Which brings us to Part 4, the new Responses API, the underlying primitive. Listen, if you only take one single thing away from this explainer today, let it be this. You must master the new Responses API. It is officially recommended for all new projects. And honestly, this API is a massive structural evolution from the old chat completions endpoint. It's a unified, agentic by default interface. That means within the span of just one single API request, the model can actually call multiple tools like web search, file search, code interpreter, and remote MCP servers. Plus, it natively supports multi-turn interactions and multimodal inputs right out of the box.
Notice how the Responses API fundamentally upgrades your entire architecture compared to that old chat completions endpoint. In the past, you sort of had to glue together a bunch of different concerns into a single messages array. You manually managed the conversation state, and you had to write custom integrations for all your tools. The Responses API completely swaps that out for distinct typed items, neatly separating your reasoning, function calls, and outputs.
It gives you built-in remote MC tools out of the gate, and you can maintain stateful context natively just by setting store true. It's so much cleaner.
And hey, if the architectural upgrades didn't convince you, the performance data straight from the OpenAI docs shows exactly why you need to migrate right now. When you use reasoning models like GPT-5 with the Responses API, internal tests are showing a 3% improvement in SW bench intelligence just by switching endpoints. Let that sink in. On top of that, because of how state is handled natively now, you're going to see a 40% to 80% improvement in cache cost reduction. It literally makes your app smarter and significantly cheaper to run. It's a total win-win.
Now, for the enterprise developers out there watching who are dealing with strict compliance rules, you might be wondering, okay, but what about data retention? Well, OpenAI actually thought of this with encrypted reasoning items. If your organization requires zero data retention, you can just set store false and include reasoning.encrypted content. What happens is, the API returns an encrypted version of the reasoning tokens. You just pass them back in future requests. The API decrypts them in memory, generates the next response, and then securely discards them. Boom. You get completely stateless compliance while still unlocking all that advanced reasoning capability.
To make all this super actionable for you, here's your step-by-step incremental rollout checklist directly from the migration guide. Number 1, update your endpoint to /v1/responses. 2, map your old messages array over to the new typed items format. 3, update your multi-turn context logic, deciding if you're going to use a previous response ID or the conversations API. 4, normalize those function definitions because they are strict by default now. 5, swap your structured output definitions from response_format to text.format. And finally, step 6, rip out all that custom tool code and upgrade to the native hosted tools provided by the API.
Okay, our final section, Part 5, Preparing for the Event, the final countdown.
All right, now that you are fully equipped with your technical backlog, let's talk about activation. I want you to consider this a massive flashing red light for anyone still putting off their codebase updates. The Legacy Assistance API was officially deprecated last year, and it will fully sunset on August 26, 2026. Guys, that is exactly 1 month before DevDay 2026. You really do not want to be fighting a deprecated API that's breaking in production while OpenAI is up on stage announcing their newest tools. Migrate to the Responses API right now, seriously.
Beyond actually updating your code, there is exactly one concrete actionable step you can take for the event today. Since applications are not officially open yet, and remember, DevDay historically uses an application process rather than just open registration, you need to head over to openai.com/index/devday2026 and register your email. Moving super quickly once those applications do open is really your most practical approach if attending in person is a priority for you.
I am going to leave you with this one thought to ponder. If GPT 5.5, this incredibly powerful Codex agent, the robust Agents SDK, and the completely revolutionary Responses API are just the baseline, the stuff developers are expected to already know going into September, what on earth is OpenAI holding back for the actual keynote? I mean, wow! So get your foundation ready, update that codebase, and definitely sign up for those notifications, because September 29th is going to be massive. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy building!